All right, welcome back to another edition of CanCham TV. I'm your host, Ralph Mathis, and with us today we have Scott Sugar, who is the technical consultant for ProServe IT. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Ralph.
First of all, how long have you been in Vietnam?
Just over 6 years now.
And outside of airplane, what actually brought you to Vietnam? Why Vietnam, of all the places you can go to?
It's an interesting story. I'll try and keep it real short for you. I was living in Japan, and they kicked me out because I wasn't making money for a Japanese company, doing some freelance work. And to make a real long story short, I ended up trying to find somewhere in Asia to stay, Thailand or Vietnam. Thailand had some government issues, so the Canadian government or the Canadian insurance company wouldn't insure me if I lived in Thailand. So Vietnam was the next choice. I came here with intentions to stay a year or two, but it worked out really well for me, and starting working with some Vietnamese companies in IT, and I just ended up staying here, and now I'm here for good, it looks like.
So Vietnam found you. Okay.
Vietnam found me, yeah.
Tell me, I mean, people come for different reasons, have different histories, different backgrounds, but for you, what do you find the best part of living here in Ho Chi Minh City?
Aside from the wonderful weather, the things for me here are, there's a strong pool of young, solid technical talent, which is really interesting for me because I'm at a stage in my career where I can start teaching people and mentoring a bit more, and just the friendly people and the friendly atmosphere here is really what keeps me here.
And say, compared to Canada, or say compared to Japan, where you have a background, how would you rate the IT skills of the young crop of people?
So I think the young group of, the guys under 30 in Vietnam in the IT world, or the guys and girls, they're all very, very well skilled. They come out of university with some good industry certifications. There's still some processes and other things to teach and to help them learn. But as far as just pure technical skills, they're all very high. Their ability to read and write English is also quite strong, which helps them, learning from technical documents and those kinds of things.
But I myself have been here 21 years in research and consulting, and I have to say, the one skill set that I find the Vietnamese have, which are phenomenal relative to anything else, is within the IT world. Phenomenal. Okay, we sort of know what you like. What do you find as a major drawback of living and working here?
On the living side, I guess the biggest drawback for me is I walk everywhere. So the dangerous sidewalks is probably the biggest drawback for me personally. Because if I have to go somewhere at a meeting at 4 or 5 o'clock, it can be a dangerous proposition to walk down the sidewalk sometimes. Business-wise, the work I'm doing now, there's just a lot of extra red tape that gets put on some processes. That if those were a bit easier, it would probably make entry for more companies into the Vietnamese market a lot easier.
But do you mean red tape with respect to government licensing issues or processes, or?
I would say a lot of it is some licensing processes and some requirements of those processes that takes extra time. That could probably be eased, but that's not my decision to make.
I think ITC is one of the sectors that the Vietnamese is strongly promulgating internally for Vietnamese.
That's right.
So there could be maybe some barriers that are placed up there for one reason or another. But I have to say, in terms of other industries, the process is quite easy if you have all your documentation together. And really nowadays, from the time that you apply, if you have all your documentation, it's usually less than 3 months to receive your license. And again, ITC is a little bit different, because it's sort of seen as an industry where Vietnam wants to stand very tall and compete with the rest of the world, whether it's Silicon Valley or Bangalore or wherever else.
That's right.
Okay. Now, Tell me, what does ProServe actually do in Vietnam? What are your activities here?
So our activities here are basically across Canada. ProServe IT Canada has a large number of customers that we do managed services for. So we monitor servers, network equipment, workstations, as well as doing project work and other things in Canada. In Vietnam, we take a small piece of those server and network maintenance contracts, and we deliver a few, through the night, as well as some ongoing maintenance tasks.
Okay. So, is this also what ProServe does in Canada?
So it's very similar. We have staff that do a very similar job, and our staff in Canada work directly interact with me and the rest of the staff that we're building in Ho Chi Minh City.
So would we call this sort of virtual online support, or?
Yeah, it could be virtual online, maintenance and management.
Okay. And is this something that ProServe does in other parts of the world, or is Vietnam sort of a pilot, or?
So Vietnam is a pilot for on a much larger scale than what we've done anywhere else. We do have a few resources positioned strategically around the world. We have a small team in France. We have a large team in Toronto. We have a small team in Vancouver, which kind of gives us the ability to go, follow the sun around the clock, providing, fully manned support to our customers 24/7.
And tell me about ProServe. How long has ProServe been around?
ProServe's been around in Canada about 11 years now.
Again, so there really isn't much difference in terms of what ProServe does in France or in Canada, just in terms of but scope, sheer size.
Yeah, a lot of it's sheer size. There is, in Canada we offer, out of the Toronto office, we offer a full range of services. So we do project work, we'll do integration work and other pieces that in the other markets, it's mostly about remote management and monitoring of equipment and servers and those kind of things.
Now, next set of questions. What do you see as the biggest potential for ProServe here in Vietnam?
So at this point, I see our big potential lying in as we mentioned before, there's a strong group of young, very intelligent technical people here. And probably at this point, ProServe's strongest benefit in Vietnam is utilizing that pool of talent, incorporating our processes and procedures into that pool of talent, and using that to service our customers. If I look at I guess that would be that.
So, because of a lot of what you do is virtual online, but obviously there's also customer engagement, whether it be over the telephone or whatever else. At present, I would imagine that, say, for your Vietnamese staff, they really are sort of online, email support, whatever else. But I would imagine the next step would be more the customer service interface, whether it's through Skyping, video conferencing, telephones. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So right now, a lot of it is back-end server work that doesn't interface with customers so much. There is a problem in Vietnam to some degree of finding really strong IT talent that speaks English at a customer service level. And that's.
But you could say that about IT people anywhere in the world.
That's very true. That's very true. We might not be the most well-spoken people around, but I think there is an issue here. I've been to technical conferences in Vietnam, and they'll have translators, and IT is a special field. Most fields are like this as well, actually, in that they have a special language specific to that field, and if that language is not known, it becomes very difficult for things to be translated. So when you go to a technical conference here, there's oftentimes the translators that are hired are general translators, and they can't function in an IT situation, and they just end up not saying anything. If you go to an IT conference in Vietnam and put on the translating headset, you probably won't hear them talking much.
But then, as a non-IT person myself, and having dealt with IT a lot, the biggest problem I have is that they do speak IT language as opposed to straightforward common English, so a IT idiot like myself can actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's one of the, it's one of those interesting positions where there are people out there, and they're few and far between, that have that really high level of speaking ability in any country, and that really deep technical knowledge, and the ability to then also take the technical terms and put them into terms that a normal Ralph can understand.
Is there such a thing as a normal Ralph? Yeah. All right. And then what about the IT industry overall? Where do you see the IT industry going? What do you see as potential future trends or opportunities?
So I think the big terms that are being talked about now, cloud and big data, that stuff, we're all moving that way. It's going to go that way, whether it's still called the same thing or not. Data will be centralized with a few providers. People like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and people will be consuming from those providers, and it's going to continue to go that way. IT departments are going to be forced into a more strategic role than a turn a screwdriver role. Soon, companies will not have any servers inside them. They won't need the physical equipment. There's no point in them having the physical equipment very soon. So that's the main sweep of the trend. What's going to happen in the meantime is that there's going to be a lot of problems with security. People are going to continue to...
Like the recent Honda debacle.
Yeah, there's the Sony debacle recently as well, and I think in the newspapers just a few days ago is the ransomware, where computers in Vietnam are being encrypted, and if you want to get your data back, you got to pay some dues for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the newspaper said about 1,300 or something people were affected in Vietnam with that.
Tell me, what is it? Are people sort of sending an email, and once you reply, or open up a PDF?
Yeah, you open up an attachment to some email, and it could come from someone that looks like you know who that is, but it has a link, and you click on the link, or you click on the attachment, and you're done. It's very, very quick. You got to be... Email is like any tool. Email can be useful, and it can also be potentially extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I think also if you, I think this is a really good point to follow up on a little bit, because Vietnam is a huge user of social media. Okay, one of the biggest in the world right now, actually, and you have young kids who are just getting into the mainstream of using internet and social media and so on and so forth, and really don't understand how it works or how shall I say, what the pitfalls are. You would think that Vietnam specific, that there would be companies looking at the security element of this, because yes, you got hackers all over the world and whatever, but I mean here, because of the unique domains and wherever else and so on and so forth, do you see that the security service specific to Vietnam are an opportunity?
Yeah, there's some opportunity there. There is a company in Hanoi called BKAV that is somewhat internationally known as an antivirus and anti-malware company. So there are some companies, doing this stuff. I went to TechCon, which is a IT security conference held in Ho Chi Minh a few weeks ago, and there's quite a few young Vietnamese people at those events, and they're doing some really interesting security work. There's a guy that he's working for, a few of them working for Google. Some of them are doing bug tracking programs where they go into software, try and break it, and then explain to the vendor how they broke it, and they can get some money for that. So as more companies like Google and Microsoft open up these bug bounty programs, they'll end up getting these really bright, intelligent people helping them in those situations, and that's how those cloud companies are going to continue to ensure security going forward, paying off what could amount to a hacker, but giving them a compensation that says, hey, I don't want to get in trouble with the law. I can make $10,000 from Google by telling them how I could break their system apart. And where cloud companies can afford to do that, a local paper shop that wants to spend $5,000 a month on IT, won't have those skills available, and they put themselves in a position of risk.
So cloud, big data are some of the major opportunities. I believe that the Vietnamese are also very good at programming. I know that, say, Pixar and a lot of other companies are actually having their programming done here.
There's extremely talented programmers in Vietnam, extremely talented 3D graphic designers in Vietnam. The schools are doing quite a good job, and I think a lot of it is just that these kinds of positions, the software is somewhat freely available. You know, there are open source free software tools available for these young students, so they don't have to have, you know, if you want to become an architect, maybe you have to have the right books, go to the right school, do the right things, and have certain. In IT, you just need a laptop at your house. You can learn MIT open learning courses, and you can, you know, feasibly, without much external interaction, you can learn how to do and how to become an excellent IT person.
So also the one thing, I mean, intellectual property right has become much better in Vietnam, but specifically to tangible products, i.e. whether it be furniture, cars, shampoo, cigarettes, so on and so forth. In the virtual world, it's virtually impossible.
Well, it's, you know, it's an issue that I've run up against when I worked with a Vietnamese company attempting to sell IT services in Vietnam. There are competitors out there, not always following all the licensing practices that you should be. Microsoft is cracking down much harder in Vietnam now, and if companies are not compliant, they stand to put themselves in a very dangerous position with, you know, quite large liabilities to you know, and the government is not stopping Microsoft. So Microsoft is able to crack down. They've done it before. I've seen a few companies in Vietnam get nicked for it, and they end up with a big letter in the newspaper saying, "Hey, I was stealing Microsoft software. I'm really sorry." And you know, it's not a good position for any company to be in to do that. One service that ProServe does offer in Canada is a software asset management service, where we go in and review all your Microsoft licensing and other licensing to make sure that you're in compliance. And we actually work with Microsoft Canada to then send that data and have them verify our audit of that company.
Is there anything else that you could suggest, say, to our viewers in terms of what to look out for when engaging an IT company in Vietnam? Like what's the how do I say? Are there any? Is there any piece of advice you can give in terms of screening to make sure that these guys are the real deal, or that they're not a fly-by-night shop?
So you know, what some of the more informed clients usually ask us for, and we're able to provide, are things like SLAs, where service level agreements, where we kind of lay out the expectations of the service you can provide. So we can tell you, if you call into us, we'll return, you know, you'll get a call back within 15 minutes, your problem will be diagnosed, we're triaged within 1 hour, and we give you certain expectations of our services. If an IT service company is not able to provide that, then that means that you're on a best effort system, where you could mean anything at that point. There are companies out there, some of them I worked with in Vietnam before, that do financially backed SLAs.
So where an SLA?
A service level agreement.
Okay.
So a financially backed one is, if I agree to, you know, fix your problem within 8 hours of you reporting it, and I don't, then some of our monthly compensation will be returned to you because we haven't met our agreements. Okay. If a company can't provide even a basic set of, you know, SLAs, I would probably be quite hesitant. I'd also want to look at what tracking, issue tracking software they would have in place. So if a customer is, you know, I've seen some IT organizations where customers send an email into a guy, and the guy fixes it and responds back. Now, if in the future that problem happens again, and happens again and again and again, who's reviewing that guy's email system to that guy's mailbox to know that, hey, this problem could have been fixed permanently 10 times ago? If you put in an issue tracking system where people are reviewing the reports out of it and using it to drive efficiencies, the customer ends up getting a much better service with much more reliable IT systems.
Okay. On the same footing, we talked about the sort of opportunities and whatnot. What do you see as Vietnam's biggest challenge in terms of achieving its sort of ITC dream? To become the next Bangalore or Silicon Valley?
Yeah. I think the interesting piece will be when a few young people with the skills come up and they have those kind of light bulb ideas, Recently they had that young guy in Hanoi who made that Flappy Bird game, and took the world by storm. And it was just one guy making a game in his apartment. Now he's doing quite well for himself, from what I understand. He's putting out other games and things like that. And those kinds of stories have happened around the world before. You have something like Minecraft, where this Swedish guy, Notch, has made a huge system. It was just him writing code by himself. And this independent designer movement is happening around the world, and it's starting to happen in Vietnam with the young people. And as you get a few more of those to kind of take over, that's when they'll start to form more of this Silicon Valley feel to it. I think the other piece is, and I'm also involved with a group called the Fab Lab, and it's a maker space, so a hacker space, maker space, where people can come. They have a bunch of tools there that would be expensive for a normal person to buy, but they keep it open to the community. Anyone can come and use these. They have a 3D
printer, an incubator, if you will.
Exactly, and that's what they're looking at it as. It's two French ladies that are doing some very interesting work, and a lot of young Vietnamese people in there. I did a presentation a week ago with them, and they're really eager to learn and creating some very interesting projects.
Recently I've been involved in a couple of IT startups, and the one thing I've noticed is the creativity in terms of the programming and the actual skill sets is very high. What is incredibly low is the user interface and the business model, or the proposition that they utilize. And what's interesting is I've had several Vietnamese come to me to actually try and help support the interface side, which is more of a commercial model or a user-friendly, I'm not a tech guy, and the business model behind it. But all of them know how to do an evaluation.
Yeah.
So it's one of the scary things I find a little bit is that are these people in it just to make a big buck, or are these people that just genuinely, your Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, who live, breathe, and eat this stuff because they're so keen on it?
Yeah, well, there's one question in every interview I've done in Vietnam for technical staff. I've asked the same question. I've asked a few questions, and at the end I always finish with asking the person why they're in IT. And when you ask someone that question, you get one of two stories, especially in Vietnam. One answer is that they thought it was a good job. One answer is that their parents thought it was a good job. And the complete opposite answer is when someone says, when I was a kid, they start off, when I was a kid, I was playing with computers, I was making them do some interesting stuff, I could get a web page going, I did this, I did that, I played with it, I fixed memory in there, I did this and this, and now what else am I going to do with my life? This is it. And those are the people that I know are going to be, if everything else lines up, they're going to be the ones that I want to work with, because that's who I am.
Curiosity kills the cat.
Yeah, kind of,
Well, it's interesting. My very first IT guy asked him, why did you wind up in IT? And he said, because it's a manly job. And I was very confused. I said, why do you say it's a manly job? He goes, because you can use screwdrivers.
Okay. There you go. So like I said before, the screwdriver is going away. Computer technicians are not going to need them much longer.
We're just about to close off the interview. Tell our audience, how can you help CanCham members here?
How can we help CanCham members? From the company perspective, we're starting to research our entry into the Vietnamese market, and we would be able to service CanCham members directly. We can also work with CanCham members, Canadian CanCham members, to service them there, or work with them there. Me personally, I attend most CanCham networking events and other events, and do my best to connect people together when I can.
Okay. And very final question. Give us one insight about the IT market that you'd like to share with our viewers.
So on my side of things, the real interesting piece that I'm looking at now is kind of a long-standing trend of virtualizing or abstracting things. So we've gone from huge racks of servers into one server with a bunch of virtual servers inside of it, and now we're abstracting that to say, hey, we don't actually need that whole server inside of it, we just need one little piece of that server into what they are now calling containers. And we're further abstracting and abstracting, and you know, the future is just going to continue to be abstracting these things away, where we don't worry about a single server and a single network device. Everything is just one program written, and you can redo your whole network, you can rerun everything just with the click of a mouse button. You can do unit testing and other things, but it's all, we're further abstracting from the physical into, I'm not sure what yet, but new advances with Linux containers. Windows is now opening up Windows containers. Virtualization and these platforms are changing IT in a very interesting way.
Okay. Well, look, I think this is a good note to start, because that last bit went way over my head.
No worries.
So, Scott from ProServe, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. That's it for our other next edition of CanCham TV. Please join us next time to find out more about what is going on in Vietnam. Thank you.